Hello and welcome to Biology Unit 2 DNA Structure. DNA. DNA is important because it contains the genetic code that every single cell in your body needs to not only survive, but to fulfill its purpose in your body. This code is responsible for giving directions to each part of the cell. And where you'll find that code is in the nucleus. The nucleus, which is usually somewhere in the center of each cell in your entire body, is the heart and soul and brain of a cell all wrapped up into one. It's the most important part of the cell because inside it carries those blueprints, that genetic code in the form of chromosomes. And the reason why chromosomes are drawn to look like a little stringy mess is because all those strings are strings of DNA, which is where all that code, all those blueprints are. Now, the reason why I compare it to a blueprint is because DNA, again, it tells the cells what it needs to do and how it needs to do it. All the instructions for how a cell completes the function it was created for is contained in that DNA. But DNA, just like a blueprint, has to be able to be copied and be able to be passed on to others so that future cells can continue to follow the same instructions so that the same job can get done over and over again in the same way without fail. If that genetic code were to be disrupted after it's been created, it could have huge ramifications, huge impacts on how that entire organism exists, how it acts, how it survives or doesn't survive, because the genetic code in the cells in your body is what makes you you. Everything from some of your personality characteristics, definitely to your physical characteristics, and even why some of you seem to be able to run faster and longer than others. Some of you might be able to learn some things easier or better or swifter than others. Some of this has to do with your environment, and some of it has to do with the genetic code in your body, telling your body to interact with things in specific ways. Now, when biologists talk about genetic code, they talk about two different ways that genetic code can express itself, two different ways that genetic code can show up or be observed. One way is genotype, and that is the genetic makeup of an organism. All these little colors and bumps and all these little pieces, that's the genotype. What order? Like in here, you'll see like green, orange, yellow, green. So those sequences, where you see the purples, where you don't, when they repeat each other, those exact sequences, that's the genotype. The phenotype is what we actually see in living organisms, the physical characteristics of an organism. So for example, this creature has a phenotype for long claws. It's possible that if this is the genes for those long claws, he has the long claws because of this specific sequence of colors. If these sequences of colors and pieces were messed up, he might no longer have claws. Changing the sequence could change his phenotype to be no claws, or soft claws, or short claws, or red claws instead of the light colored claws you see here. Phenotype is what you physically see and observe on the outside. Genotype is the actual sequence, the makeup of the organism at a microscopic genetic level. So when you hear the word genes, we're talking about regions, short pieces of DNA. And these genes tell the body how to build the specific proteins that carry out all the different processes and functions of your body. And those chromosomes that I mentioned earlier are units that are made up of genes. Chromosomes are the way that you not only carry the genes that you have, but also pass them on to your children. You got the genes you have came from chromosomes that were given to you by your parents when you were conceived. But going back to DNA and its structure, that's how is it actually constructed and put together? Well, DNA is a carbon-based molecule. If you remember from Unit 1 in the organic macromolecules, this is one of those. It's a nucleic acid made up of nucleotides, which are monomers, joined into long strands or chains by covalent bonds. Bonds are like glue, things that bind things together. So these covalent bonds are what form these little twisted ladders that you see. And these little colored pieces that you see and the sequences they make, the order that they're put into, that's what determines what instructions each DNA piece, each gene has. And there are 4 different types of nucleotides. There's adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine. And how you connect these together and the order that you connect them together determines what your genetic code, your genes are going to be. But you can't just connect any old nucleotide to any other nucleotide. There's a rule invented by a man named Professor Chargaff. And Chargaff found that the nucleotide bases always pair in a very particular way. Adenine, the A's, always pair with thymine, the T's. And guanine will only pair with cytosine, and the other way around is true as well. Now, the order isn't that important. You can have an A on one side connecting to a T, or you can start with a T and connect to an A. It doesn't really matter, but what you can't do is connect a T or an A to a C or a G. C's and G's connect together, A's and T's connect together, but you can't cross any A or T with any C or G. Now, biologists actually don't call DNA twisty ladder things. They call them a double helix, and that is the name for that twisty ladder look that it has. There are 2 strands of DNA that run in opposite directions called anti-parallel. So when you see one side of the ladder and you see another side of the ladder, those 2 sides of the ladder, the twisty ladder thing, the double helix, those are strands. And the nucleotides are the bars in the middle. If this was a ladder, you could climb up those bars. Those bars are your nucleotides, which are attached to the strands that run anti-parallel up and down the sides of the twisty ladder thing, also known as the double helix. Now, a little bit more on genes that you want to take down for your notes, and that is genes store information that determines exactly what the genotype of the organism will be. And again, genotype is your genetic makeup, not what you physically see, like skin color, size, shape. No, that's not genotype. Genotype is the genetic makeup of the organism based on those rungs of the ladder of nucleotides and those strands of DNA. And that's it. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I'll see you in class. Life too unpredictable. Take control of what you're worth.